parties or organization / your name. And once you are given the floor, please unmute yourself. Before that, please always mute yourself to have others have a better listening to the discussion. And we have also included mirror boards for virtual participants to share their views in another format, and secretarial colleagues will share the links to the mirror boards. Registered in-person participants. And also, different from yesterday, all the participants in person here also get access to the mirror boards, and you can also share your views or comments or related to this session in the mirror boards. And we will prioritize those who hadn't speak from the floor at the end of this session, just as what we did yesterday. And when you use the mirror boards to share your views, please note to also identify the name of party or organization constituencies you represent. We hope this session will be both productive and inspiring, and let's make most of our time together. We have planned for 1 hour of this session. After that, we will have a coffee break, and after the coffee break, we'll go to our next breakout groups. So the guiding questions for this group, which breakout group 1 or 2, is what are the best practices and actionable steps? So for this breakout group session, the guiding questions, would you mind to move to BOG 2, is what policies or regulatory approaches has been helpful in your country or region to create enabling environment in the forest sector? And that is also shown on your annotated agenda. To help get the conversation started, and we are pleased to have our icebreaker in this room, who will give us brief reflections on those guiding questions and share their experiences. So we will have Ms. Mandy Barnett from South Africa to give us the ice-breaking presentation. Mandy, you can either sit here. Yes, please. Yes, please come to the podium.
Great. Good morning, colleagues, and to the colleagues online, good afternoon and good evening. My name is Mandy Barnett. I'm an adaptation practitioner from South Africa, where I work for the South African National Biodiversity Institute. We're a science policy institute and are governed by a range of national and subnational policies to guide our work. The institution comes into being through a national act, and we have environmental policy and a whole lot of guidelines and regulations that help us give effect to our mandate. We are responsible for reporting on the state of biodiversity, things like the National Biodiversity Assessment, guidelines for restoration, etc. More recently, SANBI, or not that recently anymore, SANBI became accredited as a direct access entity for the Adaptation Fund and the Green Climate Fund, and that moved our biodiversity mandate into a climate change mandate as well, and has enabled us to work at this interface of biodiversity and climate change, right at the nexus. And in that space, there's been quite a lot of work we've done to catalyze national approaches to ecosystem-based adaptation and to deliver a program of work that delivers on this integrated program of work. what we've noticed in the work, and I think that will be true of anyone working in forests, is that we can't work alone in our sector if we're going to be able to make a change on the ground. And we need to be able to mainstream this work into the work of other sectors. And a lot of what we do is about mainstreaming into agriculture, water, mining, to ensure that we've got integrated land management and coordinated programs of work, and especially the programs of work that require there to be trade-offs. Now, interestingly, what I wanted to touch on for this meeting is that our accreditation as a direct access entity has allowed us to enable resources at scale for biodiversity and climate change. And I think it's an important opportunity for us to recognize when we build the projects, we build them in a way that we're working on the ground with local communities, but also in the enabling environment at the same time, so that we are giving effect to what needs to happen on the ground, but also informing the policy environment by the experience that is happening at the local level. And part of that is also looking at how we break down institutional silos towards developing connections and making linkages between the different sectors in which the work needs to happen. Now, one thing that struck me about being at this meeting, I said in the beginning that I'm an adaptation practitioner, is how separate the adaptation and mitigation programs of work are in South Africa, but I suspect that that is beyond. And what I'd like to put to this meeting as a challenge is for us to think about how we trigger better integration around those programs of work. When we're on the ground in communities, and we heard some of these voices coming through yesterday, I often say communities don't deal with climate change on a Monday, poverty on a Tuesday, and job security on a Wednesday. Communities deal with all the issues in an integrated way. And so while it might make sense in the international space to have these separate streams of work, on the ground, it makes no sense at all. And so what I'd like to put as a challenge to this group, thinking about the policy and regulatory environment, is how do we better enable an integrated program of work between mitigation and adaptation, especially when the mitigation work touches the ground and where there's so much experience in the adaptation space and beyond around how we do that site-based work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy, for sharing your experiences and also pose a question to all of us. I'm not here on speak on behalf of China, but I can also echo what Mandy has just mentioned, because like in China, we have a national strategy for what we call the dual carbon, the carbon picking and the carbon emission, carbon picking and the carbon neutrality. We have the strategy. You can understand more like the mitigation part. And the other side, we have the national adaptation strategy. But as Mandy just mentioned, at the local level, very local level, you cannot split yourself half touch upon the mitigation part and half of you touch upon adaptation part. You have to do it together. So I think this is a very good aspect to think about how to integrate this climate policy, not only for one side. I think this is experiences from both South Africa and also as Mandy mentioned, maybe in some other countries as well. So with that, I think I would like to open the floor for your sharing like what we did yesterday. Please identify your, maybe you just raise your hand and our colleagues will come to you. Yes, please. Maybe you should need to identify yourself.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. So I'm Phelan Musher and I'm from the UK. So for the UK, good governance is essential for delivering forest commitments. Governance is key to ensuring regulatory predictability, transparency and inclusiveness. Domestically, we're focused on policy coherence between our national strategy on climate, environment, trade and the economy. And part of this is creating a UK forestry standard as a one-stop shop for sustainable forest management, which supports, helps create the environment for investment and action through combining legal requirements with good practice, guidelines across 7 areas, so biodiversity, climate, historic environment, landscape, people, soil and water. And this integrated approach has helped us expand woodland, improve forest resilience, and deliver benefits for people and nature. And as I mentioned yesterday, a key requirement for an enabling environment are clear targets, including, of course, the development implementation of NDCs, as well as the implementation of the outcomes of the global stocktake. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing the experiences from UK, and also you also highlight the coherence of the policy. I think this is something, well, in my vocabulary or in my dictionary, it's something similar like the mainstreaming, but I'm not quite sure in the English dictionary it's different. Yes, please.
Policy coherence across sectors.
Thank you. Good morning to all. My name is Łukasz Wróbel. I'm from Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change in Poland. I'm representing the EU and its member states in this intervention. So, what for EU, in EU view, is the best approach to enabling environment and enhance the investment and actions in the forestry sector? Well, in our opinion, there is like clear policies and legal frameworks that make the environmental more predictable and less risk for investments. So in that, to achieve that, we aim our policies, EU policies, to that. Like the basis of that is the EU forest strategy that is like broadly mentioned on all of the rooms, I think. But what is needed to underline for that is that the EU forestry strategy making a promotion for sustainable use of forest products and offering the investment support for forest owners and the local communities, like them maybe creating the framework for this support. The next thing in EU law is a climate law. That it's like a clear view of what's our aim to the forest sector and to all the climate neutrality by 2050. And this is followed by the LULUCF regulation, which provides the clear legal binding framework for emission and removals in the forestry sector. And the most important for investment, I think, and action is a common agriculture policy that has been a tool for enabling sustainable management in forestry and agriculture investments this policy, this program, is providing a sustainable funds for not only forest-related activities and investments, but also the agriculture ones. And I think that the second thing to underline to that, beside the clear policies and legal frameworks, are define allowed ownerships and management rights, and of course setting clear goals for sustainability, which the EU forest strategy, the climate law, and common agriculture policy are aiming to. And what is worth to mention that we think that the investments in forest should be based on the reliable monitoring system for tracking forest carbon stocks and land use changes. And that, I think it's all from the EU perspective. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you for sharing the experiences from EU. Have a very, very rich experiences I think one word I capture from your intervention is predictable, something like this, to make certainty for this investment. I think is very important. So for EU, firstly, you have legislation, and then you have regulation, and have a lot of a theory of the key points. I think that's give the confidence for the business and financials to make the investment to the forest sector. Please.
Yes, yes. I just want to say that, yeah, you're clearly right. That is predictable and clear, and clear like the framework that for investors that know what to expect in the future. So the long-term predictability is very important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think this also echoes my research. Well, as you know, I'm not the forest expert, but to prepare for this session, I do a lot of the research in China, and many of them told me that especially the investment in the forest sector will get a revenue comeback in a very long period. So the certainty, policy certainty is very important for them to consider whether to make this investment or not. Thanks. So I think we have a lot of similarities. Samoa, please.
Thank you, Co-Chair, and good morning, everyone in this room as well as online. I'd like to share a bit of experience as per the question pertaining on policy and regulatory approaches that has been helpful for our small island nations, especially for the case of Samoa. In Samoa and perhaps across the Pacific region as well as small island developing states, several policy and regulatory approaches has been instrumental in enabling environment and forest investments. I would like to draw the attention on how small our sizes are in terms of the reach to reef approach, integrated management, and this has been the approach that we take on in terms of regional initiatives that supports integrated land, forest, water, coastal management. All these are integrated, aiming at making sure everybody, all the community engagements, empowering local communities to manage natural resources sustainably. In terms of national forest and environmental policies, one of the key areas that we look into is implement community integrated management plans, and we call it SIM plans, not only at the village level, but at the national level, and these two need to blend together. Looking at regional collaboration, we do draw from the experiences of our neighboring countries as well as the region as a whole. And we do have regional hubs that provides the technical support as well as capacity building that helps each and every country move forward with their enabling environments as well as facilitating partnerships that can help foster forest developments as well as investments. And lastly, in terms of targets, that has been very helpful in setting targets, making sure that these policy approaches are allowing for environmental forest sector investments that not only promotes economic welfare for everyone, but at the same time looking at making sure the sustainable forest management and forest practices for small island states. Thank you.
Thank you, Samoa, for sharing with us the practices in Samoa and also in the Pacific region. I think as you mentioned, the policy integration and also regional cooperation is very important. And the last point you mentioned is to set a target. I think the target is important to guide all these activities. I think it's very important as well. Thank you so much. Norway, Karen, please. Your flag is here. I noticed a noise here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Karina Hersberg from the government of Norway. I'd like to say a little bit on how we work on the policy and regulatory side in Norway, how that influences investments and finance, in particular towards the private sector. So the basis for how we develop those policies and regulations is really the NDC of Norway, which is economy-wide, which includes all sectors and all gases. The land use sector is not a dominant sector in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, but it's still very important, and not least because it's so important for biodiversity as well. And so through the emissions inventory, we identified what are the sources of emissions in terms of deforestation and other land use change elements. The system of governance in Norway is such that at the municipal level, they have the responsibility to develop land use plans. These are legally binding, and basically they cover the whole area of the municipality and denotes what sort of use the different areas can have. And it also gives more direction in terms of permits or restrictions in order to make this a sustainable land use. So these land use plans are very important, also in terms of reducing deforestation and forest degradation, a major cause of deforestation, which is not very large in Norway, but it's still there. A major cause is the constructions of roads, buildings, and infrastructure. So the overall planning in society is really important. We also have a system of protected areas. There is a goal to increase the protected areas in Norway in order to protect biodiversity. Most of the biodiversity is found in forests, so this will also increase protected areas in forests. This is combined with a continuous effort to improve forest management through voluntary certification for sustainable forest management. This is done in cooperation with the private sector. We are also, and this is in a recent white paper, which will basically frame Norway's NDC, we will develop a system for nature accounting, which will map the different ecosystems in Norway, and thus give a better basis for the decision-making, both at national and local level. A couple of the new elements on the policy and regulatory side that are now being considered this is being considered in Parliament, but it's put forward by the government, is to introduce basically a prohibition on building or doing actions on wetlands. So the purpose is to maintain wetlands. Wetlands in Norway, in the northern boreal ecosystems, can cause quite large emissions of greenhouse gas emissions. And so there is a proposal now to prohibit the restructuring of wetlands. And also there will be more work will be done on analyzing if there should be, in fact, a fee to provide an incentive against irreversible land use change and the cause as a cause of greenhouse gas emissions. I would like to also say a little bit about the importance between the link between policy and regulatory approaches and international cooperation and finance, because we have seen through the International Climate and Forest Initiative how major regulatory policy approaches in countries such as Brazil, Indonesia, Colombia, how important they have been to underpin predictable and long-term finance, because it is these regulatory approaches which really give the reduction in deforestation and forest degradation, that they're really at the core of of that international cooperation as well, which I think is often overlooked, that policy is crucial in any country, in Norway as well as, for example, Indonesia. And I think it relates very much to what was said by some of the other speakers in giving predictability to the private sector, so that their investments go in the right direction. For example, in Norway, this is not a government position, but I would not expect any private actor in the forestry sector to plan major forestry projects in wetlands, because they know that this is going to be regulated. They would rather direct towards sustainable certification. Thank you.
Thank you, Noi, for sharing your experiences, and you highlight the NDC is a fundamental regulatory tool to guide the, in fact, everything, because your NDC is the economy-wide, covers all the greenhouse gases, but of course, the forest sector is one of them. So this is a fundamental thing, and also you highlighted the land use planning. I think, if I understand, it's an intergovernmental thing. It's well, it's not intergovernmental. It's a cross-ministry kind of things that I think is also important, and also the voluntary certification program. I think that will attract investment from the private sector, and also mentioned the international cooperation. So my understanding, or may I ask you to clarify, when you mentioned about the predictability is more important for the partner country to have this policy certainty. Is that my understanding correct?
So within our cooperation with forest countries, it's the forest countries' national strategies and plans that are the basis for this. Their NDCs, their REDD+ strategy. And that has sort of been established through that country's own processes with government, with consultations, depending on the context of that country. And so, of course, it reflects the ambitions and the policy choices of that country. But at the same time, in an international partnership, it gives predictability and long-term perspectives on the part of Norway or other partners, which I think is quite important. I think that goes for all sectors. You might say that it's perhaps even more important in the forest sector because of the risk of irreversible changes, and also when you think about biodiversity, that biodiversity loss can in practice be irreversible.
Thank you, Noe, for sharing, and also clarify and answer my questions. I would like to give the floor to the online participants from China. China, please, you have the floor. Can we have China online participants?
Sorry, I muted myself. Sorry.
Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Xu from National Grassland and Forestry and Grassland Administration. China has officially established the ECRL, which is the Ecological Conservation Red Line System, in 2017, which covers 25 of its terrestrial territory. The red line demarcates ecologically critical zones requiring mandatory strict protection, including area vital for water conservation, biodiversity preservation, soil retention, desertification control, and coastal stability, as well as environmentally fragile regions prone to soil erosion, desertification, rocky desertification, salinization, industrial industrial development, mining, and large-scale agriculture are prohibited within red line zones. The second one is we have amended our forest law in 2019. The newly amended one focus on dual frameworks of state-owned collective forests and public welfare commercial forests. It strengthens forest resource management systems to ensure both quantitative and qualitative improvement in forest resources. Third, we have deepened our collective forest tenure reform by granting forest farmers and operators clearer property rights. The reform incentivizes sustainable forest management in collective forest areas. Concurrently, it advances mechanisms to realize the value of ecological products and improve ecological compensation, unlocking forest multifunctional potential to drive high-quality forest development, rural prosperity, and harmony with the humans and nature. Fourth, China has adopted a government-led enterprise and social organization-supported afforestation model. At the 2022 World Economic Forum in Davos, China pledged to plant 70 billion trees within a decade under the forum's initiative, mobilizing businesses, individuals, and local governments to green the planet, combat climate change, enhance carbon sinks, and support the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. Thank you.
Thank you, China, for sharing with us the experiences. I think many of them echoes the previous interventions. For example, in China, we also have the forest law. I think it's similar as just mentioned by European Union. You also have the law for this legislation. I think this fundamental thing, and also you have ecological conservation red line policy, and this is focusing on multiple benefits like say climate change, forest, water, soil. I think that could be, I guess, similar as Norway just mentioned. It's a cross-sector, cross-ministry planning, land use planning, something. So I think we do have quite a lot of shared practices. Thank you for sharing. I would like now give the floor to Dominican Republic, and to be followed by Panama.
Thank you, Chair. From the perspective of Dominican Republic, enabling environments for forest sector investment and action have been forced through a combination of policy, legal, and institutional frameworks aligning with commitments under the Paris Agreement and our NDCs. First, the National Strategy for Sustainable Management of Forests and the National Development Strategy 2030 have laid the groundwork of long-term policy coherence, emphasizing forest conservation, reforestation, and ecosystem services. These policies promote public-private partnerships and incentivize sustainable forestry through fiscal and technical support. Second, regulatory approaches such as environmental law number 6400 and the Forest Law 5718 have clarified land tenure, enabling forest reserves, and created mechanisms for sustainable forest use and protection. These laws have helped reduce illegal logging and encourages investment in forest restoration and agroforestry systems. Moreover, the Dominican Republic has integrated forests into broader climate action strategies, linking forest initiative with climate resilience, biodiversity protection, and rural development. Our RED Plus readiness process and participation in regional platforms like CCAD have further strengthening governance and transparency. In sum, we believe that cross-sectoral coordination, legal clarity, long-term vision, and strong community engagement are key pillars for attracting forest sector investment and ensuring sustainable land use transition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dominican Republic, to sharing with us. And also you start with the NDC and also your national forest management strategy. I think they also mentioned about the law. I think the legislation is very important as indicated by many of these interventions. Thank you so much for sharing. Next, I would like to invite Panama.
Thank you, Co-Chair, for the floor. Kevin Polo from the Ministry of Environment of Panama. Panama has adopted a set of environmental policies and legal instruments that provide a solid framework for creating enabling conditions for forest investment and action. These include the forest law, the general environmental law, and the law on incentive for reforestation, to mention the most relevant ones. Together, this law regulates sustainable forest use, establishes the institutional structure for environmental governance, and offer financial incentive to attract private sectors involvement in reforestation and forest management. In addition to the national laws, Panama has embraced inclusive and collaborating approach to forest conservation. A recent milestone is the agreement signed between the Ministry of Environment and the indigenous peoples of the Emberawona, Mandugandí, and Wargandí comarcas. This agreement establishes concrete and binding commitments to obtain Forest Stewardship Council (FSC) certification, an internationally recognized standard that ensures transparent, responsible, and sustainable forest management. It strengthens indigenous leadership in conserving forests and in eastern Panama and Darien. Panama has also launched new regional initiatives such as Suero Verde, introduced in 2024 in partnership with FAO. This initiative aims to generate economic opportunities for local communities while protecting the natural landscape of the Azuero region. It is built on 5 pillars: access to water, creation of biological corridors, promotion of the green economy, rehabilitation of protected areas, and rural development. Azuero Verde reflects a territorial approach to conservation that integrates environmental goals with inclusive, community-based development. In addition, Panama currently has 72 protected areas, according to the shapefile of the National System of Protected Areas, (CINAP). These areas represent more than 34% of national territory. They include the national parks, nature reserve, wetlands, and other categories designated for the conservation of biodiversity and natural resources. These protected areas serve as essential ecological assets and provide key ecosystem service for climate resilience and local livelihoods. Well-managed protected areas contribute to creating an enabling environment for forest sector investment by providing legal and environmental stability, supporting carbon sequestration and ecosystem service projects, and offering opportunities for ecotourism and sustainable communities-based enterprise. Furthermore, they enhance investor confidence by linking conservation efforts with international standards and access to climate finance mechanisms. Panama's most helpful approach have included a combination of fiscal incentives through the Reforestation Law of 2017, clearly legal frameworks for sustainable forest use, and public-private communal partnership that build trees and accountable. These measures have collectively enhanced investor confidence, streamlined project implementation, and promote responsible investment in the forest sector. Despite this advance, Panama's forestry sector still faces challenges: data transparency, the need for effective enforcement to combat illegal logging, and improve interinstitutional coordination areas for continuing improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Paloma, for sharing with us your experiences. I think you also mentioned the legislation and also the agreement between the Ministry of Environment as well as the local community and the indigenous people. I think this also echoes what the question posed by Mandy about how the government level policy can go to the root, go to the local community, which is in fact the implementer. And also I remember just now colleagues from Samoa also mentioned their policy framework. They have coordination, if I understand correctly, the national level and the village level, you have a coordination. I think this also demonstrates that how important the national policy can go to the real root, go to the implementers. And also you mentioned about the fiscal incentives, which could trigger the public-private cooperation. I think this is also very important by the fiscal incentives. I think that can also build confidence to those private sectors. If I understand correctly. Yes, I say that. Thank you so much. Colleagues, do we have further intervention or reactions, comments to others, or sharing your own country's views? Currently, we don't have something on the mirror board. And also the online participants, if anyone wish to share your experiences. Oh, yes, please.
Good morning, Co-Chair. Luke from Australia. I'll just highlight a few examples from Australia's experience. National targets underpinned by comprehensive policy planning can strengthen enabling environments and catalyse investment in climate and forest sector action. They do this by providing a clear sense of government direction, sending market signals and strengthening policy certainty to inform investment decisions. NDCs are a key example of this. Australia is also developing a new long-term strategy called the Net Zero Plan, along with 6 sectoral transition plans that cover all major sectors of the economy, including agriculture and land. These plans, along with our 2035 target in our NDC, will help give industry, investors and community certainty over the scale and pace of the transition to net zero and will be vital to enabling further investment. Sustainable finance taxonomies are also a useful tool to strengthen enabling environments. A sustainable finance taxonomy provides common definitions for sustainable economic activities. They can help direct investment into environmental activities, including forest protection, restoration, and sustainable management activities. Australia has recently developed a sustainable finance taxonomy for climate mitigation, focusing on net zero aligned critical sectors across the 6 sectors, the same sectors that are part of Australia's transitional net zero plan. When taken together, these plans provide a strong enabling environment to attract finance and investment towards Australia's priorities for climate action and forest protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia, for sharing with us your experiences. And I think it's quite similar like what we did in China. You have the what we call 1+N. 1+N, so you have a transition to the net zero plan. It's a comprehensive national one, and then you have several sectoral ones. I think similar to what we did. Thank you so much. And also you highlighted the certainty to the market is very important. Do we have online participants who wish to take the floor, or in-person participants who wish to share? Yes, please.
Hello. Well, thank you. I just wanted to share with you a tool we have in Mexico that I think it helps a lot in attracting some enable conditions for forest investment in Mexico, and it's a fund, a public trust fund managed by the Mexican federal government. And it's designed to channel, manage, and safeguard national and international financial resources to support conservation, restoration, and sustainable management. And it is legally grounded in Mexico's general law on sustainable forest development. And this fund enables both both earmarked and non-earmarked contributions and ensures traceability and accountability through a technical committee with a multi-sectoral representation. And the fund operates through a dual banking structure, a national bank for public resources, and a private trustee for flexible externally and financial mechanisms. It supports results-based initiatives such as the National Payment for Environmental Services Program, forest fire prevention, reforestation, and capacity building. And the fund structure facilitates alignments with climate finance instruments like REDD+, and allows for co-financing and disbursements of multilateral bilateral contributions under internationally recognized safeguards and fiduciary standards. So this type of structures help a lot on attracting different investments, and it's legally formed. So we are using this tool also to start our REDD+ mechanisms in Mexico that we are negotiating and trying to build now. And I think it is something helpful to share since I have seen in other different countries that have problems on attracting different type of funding because of this type of gaps with financial legal mechanisms. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing with us the solutions from Mexico, and I think it's previously, I think it's not mentioned, or maybe similarly, it's a public trust fund established by the general law of Mexico. I think when I say didn't mention this, the exact term we didn't heard previously before the public trust fund. But when I say similar, that's because I think it could be similar as, but I have to learn more about that. What our Panama colleagues just mentioned, the fiscal instruments. I think this also triggered a public-private cooperation. I think the fiscal instrument doesn't necessary to mean a trust fund established by the government, but I think the logic would be similar, that there is a guarantee that by the government is investing in this area, and then it can attracting the private sector also to contribute to this area. I think the logic behind that could be that. So thank you for sharing with us a very concrete solution. So colleagues, if you don't mind, we can look at what is shared in the Miro board. I think we have intervention from Spain still typing, and we also have information from Mandy. Yes, I think delegates as well as the online participants can see the comments or sharing from the Spain, their experiences, and also as Spanish colleague mentioned, as said by many, I think we do have quite a lot of commonalities on how to make use of the legislation, policy, regulatory framework to ensure that we have a good environment to attract investment both from the public and also private and also international resources to invest in our forest sector. May I invite colleagues from Canada online?
Yes, thank you so much, Co-Chair. So I spoke a lot about Canada's regulatory frameworks for enabling forest sector investment and action yesterday. So I wanted to focus a little bit more on the policy and program side within Canada in terms of enabling forest sector investment and action. It's been really great to see the commonalities in terms of best practices across countries today. Certainly for us as well in Canada, cross-sectoral and government approaches are key to enabling forest sector and wood product carbon policy measures. In particular in Canada, cost-sharing models have worked quite well. And this type of collaborative approach has led to increased project success, a more equitable distribution of benefits, and sustainable forest management practices. So in terms of a few of our cost-shared programs, I'd like to share, we have the Government of Canada's 2 Billion Trees program, which we've mentioned, but just to provide a little bit more detail, so it's funding over 10 years up to 2031, and we're working in collaboration with the provinces and territories across Canada, municipalities, so planting trees in cities for benefits within urban environments, Indigenous organizations and governments, and for-profit and not-for-profit organizations. And we're working a lot with in terms of developing and leveraging the co-benefits that come from tree planting efforts across these different sectors, and in terms of increasing biodiversity and human well-being co-benefits. More on the forest industry side, in terms of wood products, we also have the Green Construction Through Wood program, which is working with industry in particular to promote the use of wood as a low carbon construction material in innovative buildings. The use of long-lived products to store carbon in the built environment, and use of wood products instead of emission-intensive materials. And this is really looking at things through a systems approach, so which is also quite important in terms of an enabling policy environment. So looking at things in terms of not just the mitigation from the carbon storage within the wood product, but also how this wood product is being used across a system in terms of replacing other emission-intensive materials and providing further opportunities for climate change mitigation. And it's also helping Canada's housing shortage by advancing wood-based construction materials and systems. So other co-benefits are also provided by that program as well. And finally, I'll mention our investments in forest industry transformation program that's been facilitating the adoption of technologies and projects in the Canadian forest sector and bridging the gap between development and commercialization. So this program is aiming to create a more competitive, resilient, and environmentally sustainable forest sector, with a strong focus on low carbon projects. So these types of programs within our forest sector are really contributing to decarbonization of industrial processes in the forest sector and efficient use of resources that generate more value from the same amount of wood, and the development of novel wood-based bioenergy and bioproducts. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada, for sharing with us your experiences. I think one of the issues you mentioned is about the low carbon building use the material to the wood production to replace the traditional like cement or iron steel things. I think just now Norway also mentioned about the uses wood products for the building as a building material to replace the traditional building material like the cement, right? I think there's also kind of a common practice in across several countries. Thank you so much. And also you mentioned about your, yes, you echoed also the tree planting program and also cross-sectoral approach. I think it's very important, highlighted by many. I would like to invite colleagues from Malawi, please.
Thank you. Yeah, just a few reflections from Malawi, but also Malawi is sharing the LDC group, so some general reflections on enabling environments. Firstly, the example of Cyclone Freddy from 2023, which was the worst tropical cyclone Malawi ever experienced, is quite notable since it destroyed a lot of tree nurseries and reforestation efforts in Malawi, and that with increasing climate risks and extreme events, this it's hard to do predictability on our side, and LDCs, most of our NDCs are conditional on international finance, and we are often faced with this challenge of creating enabling environments, but the truth is that the landscape is changing so rapidly that it's very hard to anticipate what kind of risks we might encounter in the first place. And speaking of, we're hearing a lot about predictability, but it goes sort of both ways. For LDCs, predictability of finance and long-term commitments and trust to develop those enabling environments, which take time. There's a lot you learn from implementation, and if we don't have the initial investments and implementation efforts in the first place, we're never going to get to the point where we can learn from what works and what doesn't work. So I think those are very important to also take into account, that predictability and long-term partnerships and investments. Like Red Plus is a great example. It works very well within the LDCs because of its long-term nature and this collaborative effort. So I think that's something that we definitely need to take into account. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing with your experiences and also, in fact, the challenges faced by many of the developing countries, especially the LDCs, that we need a long-term, in fact, predictability. Sorry for the pronunciation of the long-term finance, because only with the long-term finance we can do a long-term strategy and planning and to take actions. Thank you so much for this critical point. So colleagues, we are coming to the end of the planned time. It's 10:40. So I would like to conclude this breakout group session. Thank you so much for sharing with us. We will have 20 minutes. We'll have 20 minutes coffee break. And please come back to join us at 11 o'clock for the breakout group 4. Thank you so much.
写完了，我刚刚说。
小岛mini 也让我们实习生准备一下 notes。
今天晚上的。
估计就是他说在 breakout group session 2的时候就把 BC 准备好。
哦，那你们准备吧。这啥名儿？
Okay, thank you, colleagues, for coming back. I hope you have got a quite good break. So we are going to the fourth breakout groups discussion. And before that, I would like to invite colleagues from Colombia because during they have some intervention for last session due to the internet connection issues. They haven't get a chance to make the intervention. So may I invite Colombia first for the sharing on the previous session. Colombia, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, colleagues. My name is Daniela Villalba from the Environment Ministry of Colombia, and I take the floor to highlight an experience from Colombia related to the previous question. Thanks. From Colombia perspective, we would like to highlight carbon pricing instruments and means of implementation, which have enabled mitigation project formulation, the offsetting mechanism of the carbon tax. It has dynamized mitigation initiative on the territory and have become a catalyst for the internal carbon market, promoting investment and involvement of the private sector in forest areas. Bearing in mind the needs of strengthening of MRV criteria towards integrity and transparency in these instruments. Colombia also wants to highlight the importance of the coexistence of national and subnational governmental programs with voluntary market projects, giving priority to approach of non-double accounting with specific regulatory criteria. We face the challenge of harmonizing our internal institution regulatory scheme for the development of a reliable and healthy national carbon market with the structure that are developed independently by the voluntary carbon market that rarely recognize national circumstances. Balancing these two relatives is key to making the implementation of forest-based mitigation measures sustainable over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Colombia, for sharing with us the experiences, especially you highlight the carbon price. It's important for the offset programs in the forest sector. Thank you so much. With that, we would like to go into our fourth breakout groups. I don't think I need to repeat about how to make use of these online tools or how to request a floor from for our virtual participants. So I would like to introduce the guiding questions for our session, which is from your experiences, what role have the data, technology, and capacity building efforts played? And what role can they play in unlocking mitigation potential in forest sector? I think just now Colombia also mentioned the MRV system is very important to have the credibility of this offset information. And we're happy we have several icebreakers for this sessions who will share their experiences and also views. Firstly, I would like to invite Mr. Andrean Flores Aguila from the NDC Partnership. Please share your views. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, co-chair, and I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Adrian Flores, and I work for the NDC Partnership. I represent a global coalition of more than 245 countries and developing partners committed to support the enhancement and implementation of climate goals and sustainable developing goals as well in developing countries. So I don't come as a country representative, a financier, or a project implementer, but as a facilitator of technical cooperation and finance. What we have seen from our work, conservation, restoration, and improved management of forests are among the most cost-effective solutions we have for mitigation. And the good news is that the data is not lacking, right? So we have an abundance of data technologies to monitor forest cover, degradation, deforestation, carbon sequestration, you name it. The challenge lies elsewhere. Data platforms and systems often don't speak to each other. There's no interoperability. There are also different methodologies that are used to assess the state of world forests, meaning that countries often need to adopt multiple monitoring, reporting, verification systems. And this isn't just inefficient, it's of course time-consuming and it's costly. And of course, someone needs to absorb that cost and that complexity. In addition, even when data exists, governments often don't have the tools, the trained personnel or the systems in place to actually use these systems. This leads to major barriers across the board, such as that data isn't shared, satellite data isn't validated on the ground, indigenous and traditional knowledge and communitarian knowledge is rarely integrated, technology is expensive and also difficult to scale, and ministries and government entities often don't have the capacity to work with complex geospatial information. And these aren't isolated cases. We are seeing them across many countries. For example, through our work at the NDC partnership, we have seen a clear demand for support in these areas. Almost 80 countries have requested support in these areas, but less than half have received the support that they need. And there's also a pattern in the type of support countries seek. So beyond general NDC development, the most requested activities are the development or updating of MRVs and M&E systems, conducting all types of studies and analysis, building capacity, and engaging stakeholders. And these aren't just technical add-ons. These are foundational needs. What's also telling us is this: requests that focus across cross-cutting areas, namely those that integrate mitigation and adaptation, have a higher support rate compared to the 50% support rate for mitigation-only activities. So if we frame forest mitigation solely in terms of data or carbon metrics, we might be missing a bigger picture here and missing out on support as well. And just to close, I want to emphasize one thing. Capacity building efforts are most effectively when they are country-driven, driven by communities, when they're inclusive. When stakeholders, especially local actors, are part of this process, the outcomes are stronger and more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian, for sharing your experiences conducting the NDC partnership. The second, we would like to invite Mr. Aditya Putra from Indonesia. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Give us the opportunity to take a floor. My name is Aditya Pradana Putra. I'm from the Ministry of Environment. Indonesia has one of the world's largest tropical forest areas. And then therefore, forest mitigation is very important, such as the REDD+, sustainable forest management, peatland restoration is central to Indonesia's climate goal, including to meet its national determined contributions. So Indonesia has developed and improved a national forest monitoring system for the transparency and accuracy in the tracking deforestation and degradation. The National Forest Monitoring System was established since 1989 by the Ministry of Forestry through the National Forest Inventory Project. The NFMS system utilized remote sensing technology to generate a series of land cover maps for monitoring purposes consistently. The land cover maps were initially generated triennially and subsequently updated on an annual basis. In a National Forest Monitoring System, quality assurance, quality control conducted by using imagery data of superior quality compared to the imagery data used the source for land cover prediction. Alongside ground check data and additional supporting information are also incorporated into QA/QC processes. In relation to institutional rules and how NFMS take a part for MRV process, NFMS play a significant role in providing continuous information on activity data and sources of emission factors. It is really needed to ensure the MRV process, particularly in RADD plus measurement conducted with the TACC principle. NFMS should be made to take UNFCCC framework requirement for RAD plus, which is included the national strategy, FRL, and safeguard. On the other hand, Indonesia also have developed a forest and land fire monitoring system we call SIPONGI. It is information system developed by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry to monitor and detect forest and land fire in Indonesia. The system uses satellite data hotspot analysis and other information to provide a real-time picture of the location and potential for fires. SIPONGI can be accessed via website and mobile application, so that information about forest fire can be easily accessed by the community and stakeholder. The system is expected to help in effort to prevent and handle forest fire, as well as provide education to public about the importance of the protecting the environment from the threat of fire. The future potential is improved carbon accounting. In this enhanced forest carbon stock, data above and below ground can be improved emission baseline. And then AI and machine learning, this technology can accelerate detection of illegal logging or forest fires. And we need to data integration linking socioeconomic biodiversity and land tenure data could support more holistic forest policies. And then technical skill and knowledge transfer is very important, which is provided transparent and accessibility forest data from National Forest Monitoring System. This system integrated field inventories, remote sensing data, and national statistics, allowing for credible forest carbon stock or emission reduction assessment. Technical skill and knowledge transfer may be invite FAO involvement, because the FAO has played a role in building Indonesia technical capacity for forest monitoring and climate mitigation. Through collaboration program like UN-RED, FAO support training in remote sensing and GIS. FAO facilitate the development of skill among government, agencies, research institutions, and civil society in the use satellite imagery and geographic information system. This is enable more accurate mapping of forest cover, deforestation, hotspot, and land use change. For the strengthening MRV system, FAO support Indonesia design and operational its MRV framework, which is essential for reporting emission reduction to UNFCCC and for the result-based payment under RED+. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Indonesia, for sharing your experiences. You have highlighted a lot of the very valuable points and also the experiences of your National Forest Monitoring System. I think this is a very comprehensive one. Thank you so much for sharing. And I would like to invite our third speaker, Ms. Juliana Salis from the IDB. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. As you might know, and I think that's not different from what the other colleagues have mentioned, we use satellite data and sensor to detect changes in different biomes, like forest cover, to help countries with the MRV system. But we are also using two other different ways, not only supporting governments with their data, the use of satellite data and sensors for their own MRV system, but we use internally as well. And how? Before providing loans to some sectors, we look into what is the location of the investments that will be done. For instance, rural infrastructure, loans from the agriculture sector. Are we providing loans, supporting those investments in areas that have fragile ecosystem? Yes or no? We see that in the satellite image, and we see that beforehand to actually help identify the risks and the mitigation measures. And I think what is missing is to see what's going on after the project has been developed. And I think that's the missing part. It's not only seen before, but after. We also support national development banks, national commercial banks on the implementation of their monitoring system. Again, using satellite data, sensor, so they can best identify the risk of providing loans for private sector, subnational governments, and take that into account. Moving forward, as we know, AI is gaining a lot of momentum. I like to talk more about what's not working, and I think there is a tremendous opportunity for using AI to map the different layers of information. I think this system that I just mentioned have been being used for decades. The reality is that we are still failing. The reality is that we are still providing resource from different level, from MDB, national banks, for those that are committing deforestation and that having a nature negative impact. So something is missing here. And I think it will be important that we all talk about it. One thing that crossed my mind is actually using not only satellite data, but crossing that information with the transit of goods and the volume of production. And I don't think we all development institutions are doing that crossing of information, and I think with AI that will be easier. And let me finishing with one concrete example. Something's going on because our borrowers are saying that they are complying with all the environment regulations. We see the satellite image. We don't see a loss of forest coverage, but the deforestation keeps moving forward. So wouldn't that be the case that we are having a situation where we call blanqueo? I don't know, like cattle, let's say cattle laundering, because the borrowers are giving us data from one area that is in compliance with all the environment regulation, but in fact the cattle is coming from another different area. So are we really crossing all the missing information here to be able to make sure that we are not providing the resource to those? So I just want to leave the floor with that question, the icebreaker, because only satellite image ex ante is not enough. And we are failing on that front. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliana, for sharing our experiences from the IDB. I think to make use of different technologies to cross-check is also very important to support the decision making. So we'd like now to open the floor for any interventions to share your experiences, both for the in-person participants and the online participants. Please.
Thank you very much. I'm Tom from Germany, and I'm speaking also on the situation in the EU and the 27 member states on data. And since it's the first time I'm taking the mic with you as a co-chair, I want to congratulate you on your election of co-chair and assure you that we will try to, and we will actually do constructively work together in this mitigation work program and continue to do so as we did in the last years. So congratulations. In the EU, in our updated current NDC of reducing at least 55% of GHG emissions by 2030 from 1990 levels, we also included a mandatory target for LULUCF sectors in every member state. In fact, this mandatory target will only be partly counted against the EU NDC. Of course, that increases the pressure on proper and transparent implementation and data analysis. To ensure this, the LULUCF regulation is accompanied by legislation that requires every member state to improve the monitoring and reporting from the land use change, forestry sectors on a very granular, or let's say detailed level, including single farmers and smallholders of forests, etc. It also foresees moving to higher tiers for all pools and use detailed and geographically explicit land use conversion data in accordance with at least the 2060 IPCC guidelines. And it even regularly goes beyond these guidelines recommendations. These improvements are enhancing the verification of the progress in achieving targets, and they provide a much more detailed assessment and analysis of the size, situation, and changes in the carbon pools of the LULUCF sectors. The implementation of this reporting obligation is an investment, and it's an obligation at the same time, especially at the lowest level of administrations for farmers, for forest holders, smallholders, etc. So it is accompanied by support elements, including scientific adjustment tables for carbon uptake and emissions, to keep it manageable to all actors. But most of all, it is an investment in the success of land use policies today and in the future, as high quality of current data is the basis for updating, for increasing, for improving land use policies in the long term. On top of that, the EU has additional land use policies in place that already establish detailed land use data, mostly from the agricultural sector, and helps transparent reporting and assessment of mitigation action at local levels especially. And this also creates incentives for action at every level and in every region. The regulation includes, for example, the regularly updated Common Agricultural Policy in the EU. Additionally, remote sensing technologies play an important role in verification and contributing to the national forest inventories in the EU and all of its member states to ensure the delivery of accurate, actual, and timely data. Its implementation in all 27 member states is further supported in various ways, including workshops, webinars, EU reviews of national inventories, and supported by scientific work and advisory work of the EU Environmental Agency and the EU Joint Research Centre. Improvement and evaluation of the data is a permanent and ongoing process, as the accuracy of data is essential to evidently meet our GHG emissions goals and find out about elements to improve in this task, especially in the delicate, or let's say sensitive LULUCF sectors. And we continue to improve that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, the EU and the member states, for sharing your experiences. I think, well, you also mentioned a lot of very valuable points, and I think the capacity building is also very important. Even it is not only for, I think, developing countries, like we use the workshops and, as you said, education center. I think it's also a way to enhance the capacities of these implementers. And also, I think one thing I got from you is with the legislation, you request all the member states to establish monitoring system. I think there's a mandatory requirement. I think it's also very important, and also I assume that would keep the consistency across the different member states to use the same methodology. This, I think, could address a little bit about the challenges raised by Mr. Adrian in the first ice-breaking presentation, because you mentioned the challenge that different countries are using different methodology, that the inconsistency would be a challenge for this MRV. Thank you so much for that. I would like now to give the floor to Dominican Republic to make the intervention, and then to be followed by Oliver Wolf from Switzerland. Dominican Republic, please.
It's an honor to speak on behalf of the Dominican Republic and to share how data, technology, and capacity building are helping us unlock the mitigation potential of our forests. First, let me underscore that data has been the foundation for informed decision-making. Through forest inventories, land use assessment, and the establishment of emission baseline, we have developed a clear understanding of our forest dynamics, which in turn has guided our national policies and international commitments. As part of these efforts, we have developed a national MRV tracking tool that allows us to monitor mitigation action in the forest sector with greater transparency and consistency. This tool has been instrumental in strengthening our reporting system and in preparing for result-based finance mechanisms, including REDD+. Second, technology has empowered us to enhance monitoring and improve transparency. With a digital imagery platform such as CEPAL and GIS tool, we can now detect forest cover changes more rapidly and with greater accuracy. Importantly, we are currently developing a monitoring and evaluation M&E tool that will integrate into transparency framework of our national determinant contribution. This tool will help track not only mitigation outcomes, but also the implementation of forest-related policies and action under the NDC. But we know that neither data or technology can create lasting change without capacity building. That is why we have invested in training our national technical teams, strengthening institutions, and empowering local communities to manage forest resources sustainably. This investment ensured that technology is translated into action, and action into impact. Looking ahead, we are committed to integrating these tools into broader land use and climate planning processes, and to strengthening regional collaboration for innovation and shared learning. For the Dominican Republic, data, technology, and capacity are not simple enablers. They are essential pillars of our forest mitigation strategy. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us your experiences from Dominican Republic. May I check if Oliver Wolf is online from Switzerland?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me well? Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I'm Oliver Wolf from the Swiss Federal Office for the Environment representing Switzerland. We believe, as just also mentioned by the colleague from the Dominican Republic, that forest information that is accurate and up-to-date is vital to inform forest policy and management decision towards sustainable use and conservation. Our data efforts have played a key role for informed risk-based long-term planning and management interventions. And today I would like to share with you some practical examples from Switzerland in this regard. Our National Forest Inventory provides robust long-term data critical for informed forest-based climate action on national, state, and municipal levels. This data is used by the government, for example, to inform decision-making, and by forest owners and businesses to inform long-term planning and management in face of climate change. Related to data and information, ensuring access for all relevant stakeholders, including the local community, we understand as key. That's why in Switzerland, all data is published online as open government data. As an example, can serve fire danger and public warning and information, which we publish daily on our government website, and the respective information is also included in the publicly available app of Swiss Meteo to the public. This information can also be used by, for example, touristic agencies that can integrate fire danger information on their websites to warn tourists, or also public transport companies can display fire danger in trains and buses. For targeted measures directed to maintaining forest services, including mitigation, the Swiss government developed an app directed to forest owners and managers. It shows site-specific tree species which are adapted to climate change today and in future. Related to this, we are currently working on developing GIS-based spatial maps of climate-sensitive forest stands for whole of Switzerland. Here, continuous data improvement is very important, also a challenge we're working on right now, as also mentioned from the colleague from Germany. This information can be used by by states, forest management, and owners for adaptation of forests to climate change. Capacity building and learning is at the core of forest-based action in our country. The Swiss governments invest in this regard in education, training for foresters, landowners, local authorities to apply SFM in close to nature manner, reflecting the needed adaptation of forests to climate change. This can be exemplified by dedicated courses for forest managers, owners, but also, for example, for agricultures on technical SFM interventions. On the international level, we support actively initiatives directed to provisioning of national data into data collection platforms in the UNIC region. Key in this national reporting is a streamlined process that reflects different reporting capabilities and also reduce reporting burden for member states. As an example, can serve the UNIC's InForest platform, a comprehensive source for reliable data on forests and forestry in the pan-European region. So I hope with these practical examples I could show a little bit what we're doing in our country and hope to add with this to the discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Switzerland, for sharing with us your national experiences as well as experiences in the international cooperation. Thank you so much. I would like now to give the floor to Iran, to be followed by Russia Federation. Iran, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair. I want to share some information about a carbon sequestration project in Iran. The carbon sequestration project has been implemented across various regions of Iran and has successfully built local capacity for restoration. This initiative has effectively trained local communities and built capacity building for local peoples. The project demonstrated how increasing public awareness and capacity building about ecosystem services play a vital role in preventing land degradation and afforestation. As an internationally funded initiative, it served as an excellent model for the forestry and for the unlocking mitigation potential in my country. Thank you.
Thank you, Iran, for sharing your concrete case to us. I would like now to invite the Russia Federation for your intervention.
Hello. The Russian Federation would like to share our best practices in each of the areas. As for data, Russia is implementing the program of the State Inventory of Forests. This data enables to verify the ecological and biological condition of the forest and determine quantitative and qualitative characteristics of forest plantations. What else? We are working on the development of a scientific base for studying the carbon balance and fluxes in the forest ecosystems. We have launched the National Climate Monitoring System of Russia aimed at monitoring greenhouse gas flows and absorption of climate impacting substances in terrestrial ecosystems. We are using ground-based measurements, remote sensing, and mathematical modeling in order to refine current and historical carbon sink estimates of Russian forests and to predict the net absorption of carbon dioxide up to 2100. As for technologies, the Russian Federation is implementing various monitoring technologies to prevent forest fire, as I said before. For fire hazard monitoring, the state satellite system called AeroGLONASS has been established. And early wildfire detection and fire prevention systems, as well as AI-powered video surveillance systems are used. As for capacity building, we are implementing the state program Forestry Sector Development, which includes federal project, forest protection, and one of the main objectives of the program is human resource development in the forestry sector. The carbon measurement supersites program of the Russian Federation is a great example of the integration of data, technologies, and capacity building. Within the program, we are monitoring greenhouse gas emissions, developing technologies in order to enhance greenhouse gas absorption capacity, sustainable forest management, as well as training of highly qualified specialists. To conclude, together, these elements unlock the forest sector's substantial mitigation potential by enabling targeted, transparent, and inclusive climate actions aligned with national and global commitments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Russian Federation, for sharing with us your national experiences. I would like now to invite Singapore to be followed by Palau.
Thank you, Gao. Well, just a very quick example of what Singapore is doing. Well, the Singapore government is also funding research led by the National University of Singapore's Center for Nature-Based Climate Solutions. They are working on improving the credibility and effectiveness of nature-based carbon projects in Southeast Asia. And we are doing this by developing region-specific methodologies for carbon sequestration and monitoring. This includes developing region-specific methodologies, such as to move beyond global or pan-tropical models for estimating carbon storage in various ecosystems, like rainforests, mangroves, and peatlands. It also includes establishing monitoring plots across different habitats in Southeast Asia, using tools like LiDAR to generate precise information about carbon stocks and their changes over time. They're also working on improving carbon estimation accuracy by using, site-specific data and methodologies, and the research also aims to improve the accuracy and reliability of carbon estimates, ensuring that carbon credits generated in nature-based projects are truly real and additional. We hope that this effort can also help contribute to unlocking further financing for the forestry sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Singapore, for sharing with us your experiences. Let me invite Palau, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Espen Rollenberg. I work for the Secretariat of the Pacific Community, technical advisor to Palau for this meeting. Wanted to share some experiences from the Pacific, particularly around geospatial planning, monitoring, and verification. So we've been working for some years now on a program called Digital Earth Pacific, which is at the moment going into phase 2, which is around capacity building. The first stage was around collecting as much of the free data as we could, but also where we could get the more expensive data provided to the system. And data isn't cheap. It's certainly not cheap for us in the Pacific. And some of the freely available satellite data is not even that accurate. We had freely available data for working on an inundation model project for Tuvalu, and some of the satellite data suggested that there were elevations of up to 20 meters in Tuvalu. Anybody who's been to Tuvalu knows that that is simply not the case. It's 2 meters at best. So having the LiDAR data for Tuvalu enabled us to do a 3-dimensional inundation model that could show different scenarios and different impacts. So we're looking at geospatial modeling, not just from one sector. We're looking at it for a number of different sectors. So not just forestry and other resources, but coastal zone management, coastal fisheries, etc., etc. So a number of different associated applications that we can benefit from. But it's not cheap, and it's time-consuming. And also, moving now into the capacity building phase, we're also faced with how to make this accessible to various levels of country administrations, but also to stakeholders and communities. And again, it's not a cheap thing to try and do, but it's definitely a highly necessary step to do. But again, we are faced with the challenge that there aren't many existing similar models to what we're trying to do in other parts of the world. They're a much larger scale than what we need to have in place. So I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Thank you, Palau, to share with us your experiences and also highlight the challenges and also the cooperation around this region. I would like now to invite colleagues online from China to share your experiences. China, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chair. We fully recognize that data, technological innovation, and capacity development play a very critical role in unlocking the mitigation potential of the forest sector. Robust data and technologies form the foundation for evaluating emission reduction outcomes. So it is necessary to say that it is necessary to strengthen the capacity building efforts in developing countries. In China, we have established a nationwide continuous forest monitoring system, conducting comprehensive surveys every 5 years. By integrating satellite remote sensing, unmanned aerial vehicles, and ground surveys. It achieves dynamic monitoring of forest resources. This system provides a scientific basis for assessing carbon sink capacity and mitigation potential, while offering precise data to inform forestry emission reduction policies and action plans. So we propose developed countries to enhance support for developing countries to build a robust forest monitoring system and facilitate knowledge sharing platforms for best practices. Thank you.
Thank you, China, for sharing your experiences, and also you mentioned the need for support to developing countries as well. I would like to invite Gabon and to be followed by St. Lucia. Gabon, please.
Thank you, Co-Chair. I will deliver this intervention not only for Gabon, but also in alignment with the African group of negotiators. So we made the first intervention on the other room, but this one is and also the Congo Basin. So let me begin simply first with a truth on our continent. So we cannot implement what we cannot measure. So in Gabon, experience, data, technology, and capacity building are not support function. They are strategic prerequisite for credible, sovereign, and scalable forest mitigation. So Gabon is proud to be one of the most forested countries in the world, with 88% of our territory covered by natural forest. And those forests absorb approximately 140 million tons of CO2 every year. So this makes Gabon a net carbon sink and contribute to a global climate stability far beyond and border. So, but we cannot keep our forest standing because it's at our own cost. So without the financial means to monitor them, protect them, and value them properly. So over the last few years, Gabon has invested heavily in building a national forest monetary system grounded in science, transparency, and national sovereignty. We've completed a national forest carbon inventory, rolled out real-time satellite tracking, and submitted robust forest emission data under the REDD+ framework. So thanks to this, we have been able to become one of the first African countries to receive result-based payment. So a 17 million that we have received directly under a $150 million agreement with the Central African Forest Initiative and Norway. So this was not charity, basically. I said it earlier as well. It was payment for verified mitigation outcome backed by our country-owned data. So we're now taking it a step further. In 2022, we submitted a REDD+ program under R3, and it's set to issue sovereign carbon credit backed by our own and the most rigorous MRV system on the continent. But let me be clear here, all this come at a very high cost. So forest monitoring using satellite data, field plot, and analytic costs millions each year. So, and most of the Congo Basin still lack reliable carbon baseline. So for example, in the DRC, only 0.3% of forests have been mapped using LIDAR. So that means over 99% of the basin remain unmeasured in high resolution. If we want to unlock mitigation potential, this must change, and it must change urgently. So Gabon is embracing cutting-edge technology, from drone to cloud computing to AI-assisted land classification. Our agency, national agency that we have, use satellite and radar tool to detect illegal logging, fire and degradation. This system are helping us to preserve over 23 million hectares of forest. So we've also digitized enforcement, introduced early warning system, and launched digital registry to track carbon and biodiversity credit with transparency and integrity. Yet much of this is donor dependent and not sustainably financed. So, and across the Congo Basin, we see serious technology gap as well. So in connectivity, radar access, server infrastructure, and analytical capacity. So we found sustained support, even the best technology become obsolete. So this is not just a national problem, it's a regional climate risk. So in terms of the technology, is also one of as strong as the people who use it. Gabon has investing in training foresters, GIS experts, rangers, and young scientists. So for example, on our CAFI, the Central African Forest Initiative supported monitoring program, is trained 20 graduate research. So it's established 500 permanent forest plots and setting up long-term biodiversity transact. We've also integrated environmental science into national curricula and professional pathway, but we still face a huge shortage. So Gabon has fewer than 100 national staff working on carbon MRV, and many officials wear multiple hats. So in other Congo Basin country, the situation is even more challenging. Some forest service operate with fewer than 5 technical officers nationwide, and without urgent investment in institutional capacity, the promise of mitigation will remain out of reach. So this is why in Gabon, we have called for regional training hub, peer exchange, and long-term partnership to build not just system, but sovereign knowledge as well. So co-chair, Gabon progress has been possible because of sustained, targeted investment through the CAFI, the UN RED, and bilateral partners. But even with this, we are spending millions each year from our own budget to maintain global public goods. And yet when we speak of climate finance, data, technology, and capacity, and rarely treating as eligible investment. So that must change. And this is the reason we are here as well today. These are not overheads, they are essential infrastructures. So if we want to mobilize carbon finance, ensure environmental integrity, and empower our communities, then we must finance the foundation. That means funding national forest monitoring system, high-resolution satellite and radar platform, digital registry, and geospatial labs, training program and staffing, and community-accessible data tools for verification and benefit sharing. So Gabon also supports innovative instruments to fund this need, such as our 2023 $500 million blue bond, which freed up $163 million for marine conservation. We believe a green bond of forest or dedicated funding windows in the GCF and other mechanisms could do the same of terrestrial ecosystem. So, co-chair, let me close with a message that this is also about climate justice. So, forest nations like Gabon and other countries in the Congo Basin have already done the hard part, and we have kept our forests intact. So, while absorbing the world carbon, we've built institutions, generate data, and shown results. But we should not be penalized for succeeding early, not left to finance climate stability for the world alone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabon, for sharing with us a very comprehensive, I think I get the picture of the whole system, how it works in Gabon and successfully. Especially congratulations for the first result-based payment project. Congratulations for that. Thank you. I think we are approaching to the planned time, but I would like to invite Sanlosha to give us an intervention sharing your experiences. Please, Sanlosha.
Thank you, Co-Chair, and good morning, everyone. I'm from St. Lucia, and I'm here to just share a little bit about, the question that's there on screen as it relates to capacity building and how it has really helped us as a small island developing state to expand our mitigation potential. So in 2023, with support from the GIZ Readiness, they had an NDC Readiness Support Program. They came on board with us to support our Department of Forestry through a capacity building initiative. The idea of this project, which was supposed to be 6 months, was to assess our legislative framework, to understand what sort of changes we might have to make or what systems were already in place to actually develop and participate more properly in Article 6 mechanisms, or to just further our REDD+ strategy. Secondly, this project did an assessment of our last forest inventory, looking at the data that we got from the inventory, as well as the methodology that was used to conduct the inventory, to make an assessment of our current forestry department, to understand what sort of training our officers might require and what sort of technology these officers would need to actually execute the inventory. And thirdly, after they did that assessment, they then implemented a training with our forestry officers to ensure that they were prepared to actually execute an inventory. Now, this was done in the beginning of 2025, but we've recognized that the actual support to complete the inventory is something that we do not have, and it is something that we do need. And I'm sure other small islands or other countries that do have forests need much greater support to complete their inventories, to get updated data, because as we completed our third nationally determined contribution, we recognized that whilst we do have an updated FREL, we still did not have sufficient information to give a much stronger commitment than what was actually put in for the NDC. Luckily, through the project that I mentioned yesterday, which is the Southeast Coast Project, and the rehabilitative work that they're doing in degraded forests, we were able to actually include a specific commitment from the forestry sector in our third NDC, and we saw that through rehabilitation work, through the data that is being collected from the Southeast Coast Project, we were able to make one step forward as it relates to enhancing our mitigation commitments. But we do recognize that further support is still needed to complete our inventories and to ensure that we have up-to-date, robust, strong data to help us to make more commitments, or to even facilitate our participation in any Article 6 mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you, St. Lucia, for sharing with us. I think we'll have the last speaker from the IPO constituencies. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Co-Chair, for the IPO. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of the IPO. So from the indigenous people's perspective, data, technology, and capacity building are key tools for unlocking forest mitigation potential when applied in a respectful, inclusive, and rights-based manner. First of all, in data, the indigenous peoples monitoring combined with satellite tools allows to demonstrate our contributions to forest protections and carbon sequestration. It is essential to ensure the data sovereignty, respect the knowledge of indigenous peoples, and apply free, prior, and informed consent. Now, in technology, the indigenous peoples, we are using tools such as a drone. For example, here in Panama, we are working with one of the indigenous peoples, that is Kuna Nation. We are using the multispectral drones. We are for assess soil and vegetable health, and guiding land and crop restoration decisions, and this tool must be accessible, culturally appropriate, and accompanied by training to truly empower in the indigenous communities. In capacity building, we are strengthening indigenous training, territorial governance, and organization process is vital for our full and effective participation in initiatives such as REDD+.
climate finance and national mitigation strategies, and the capacity building must be strengthened our leadership and self-determination. So now we have concluded that we strongly recommend that all such efforts be designed and led by the indigenous peoples with direct, long-term, and flexible funding. Our contributions not only mitigate climate change, but also protect biodiversity, ensure food security, and hold the human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues from the IPO constituencies. I think that we come to the end of the session. Do we have any from the mirror-balls? We have two. Can we show that on the screen? I think Switzerland previously made the intervention, so maybe we can have a look of what's the climate policy initiative said. I don't think I need to read out all of them. I think it's very clear to all of you from the screen. Thanks for them to sharing their views. So colleagues, without further ado, I think the plan is that we will go back to the plenary, and I will do the report back for both the breakout group 2 and 4, and Angela is going to report back on breakout groups 1 and 3. So thank you so much for participating in this session. I think we have a very fruitful discussion here and shared a lot of the experiences as well as the views. The data, technology, and capacity building of their roles. Thank you so much. I hope you also enjoyed a lot to learn from each other. So let's meet in the plenary. Thank you so much.